All right, first of all, is everyone okay? Do we need a moment? Deep cleansing breath. Inhale, exhale, we're good? We're good, all right. I'm Debra Birnbaum, Editor-in-Chief of Gold Derby, and it's my pleasure to be with you tonight to moderate the Q&A about train dreams. Let's bring out our panelists. First, we have writer-director Clint Bentley. And then we have your Vanguard Award winner, Joel Edgerton. First of all, and most importantly, congratulations on your Gotham Award nominations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's very exciting.
How did it feel to get that news this morning?
It's nice. You get into this. We premiered the film at Sundance back in January, and then kind of let it go down, and then brought it back out at TIFF, and now we're just introducing it to the world. And it's one of those things that's like tonight, where we've been with it a long time, but now we're just kind of like getting audience feedback and all of that. And it's really beautiful to things like that. It just means people want to see it. It's beautiful.
It really is pretty beautiful. I have to tell you, I got invited to one of those early tastemaker screenings, like at the ahead of the season before all the madness. And my sister happened to be in town, and like my family has no idea what it is I do for a living. They don't understand what I do. And so I brought her along with me, and we sat there and just like basically held each other for 2 hours. and we walked out, and she said to me, "How do films get better than this?" And I turned to her and I was like, "I don't really know."
Thank you.
So really, congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's start with the origin story. I know this is based on a novella. How did you discover the novella, and what made you think that this was a good idea for a film?
First of all, thank you all for staying around. We really appreciate it. And thank you again for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you. I read the novella when it first came out, just because it was one of the books to read that year, and it was a Pulitzer finalist, and I had never read Dennis Johnson before, but then I read this book, and I was so struck by it. It's only, for those of you who haven't read it, it's only 117 pages, and yet it encapsulates this entire life and a time in the world. And I fell in love with the book. I fell in love with Dennis Johnson. I then devoured everything he had, almost everything he had written. But I didn't think about it as I didn't think about it as a movie, because it's a really hard thing to think about getting your hands around. And then fast forward several years, I made a film called Jockey, and some producers had the rights to this book, and they reached out, and they had been trying to find a way to get it made, and they reached out and asked me if I'd like to adapt it. And I read it again thinking about it as a movie, and it just really struck me as all the cinematic potential that I think like comes through from the book. It's so poetic and beautiful, but at the heart of it, just this story of this man who lives this beautiful, deep life that kind of fades from existence at the end of it. It really struck me, and I was really hoping that it would work out to make it into a movie.
And Joel, what drew you to the project?
Pardon?
What drew you to the project?
I had read the novella as well years before, 4 or 5 years before Clint had asked me about doing the movie, and I had really connected with it then. And then I got this message about meeting with Clint about it, and it felt like someone knew that I was obsessed with this novella. I had even, after putting it down, had inquired after the rights to the book. So I thought, I wonder if they knew that was me inquiring after the rights, or... And so I was already ready to saddle up for it. And then knowing that Clint was making it, and I thought he'd done such a remarkable job with very little resources as well on his first film, Jockey. So it was like a great story, the character that felt more suitable for me now as I've gotten, after reading the novella, I became a father of 2 little kids, which made it very connective to me. Obviously, you guys have seen the film. My greatest fear playing out on screen. And it just felt like the right thing for me to do, and a chance for me to do something quite exposing about things that are already living inside of me. the happier stuff and the sadder stuff. And I thought he'd done such a marvelous job of adapting a complicated novella into the screenplay that it felt almost too good to be true.
And indeed it was. How did you approach even adapting the screenplay? How did you begin that process?
Going back and reading the book, and then reading it again and again and again, and trying to get underneath it, because it's told in this very stream of consciousness style. And pretty quickly I felt a shape for it. And that shape of, you know, what comes to be in the overarching narrative, what comes to be in the film, of him going back and forth and trying to figure out how to make it work with family, and then the fire in the middle, and then the rest of the film being, how do you pick up your life and the pieces of it and try to move on after that. And then working with my writing partner, Greg Cuidar, we sort of dug in and then tried to like do that. And then it was a long, difficult process of trying to like execute that idea. Part of it, we went up to the area where the book was written and where it's set in the panhandle of Idaho, and just went around and met people, met logging families, people who'd been doing logging up there for the last 3-4 generations, Kootenai people who were tribe members there who are trying to reintroduce giant sturgeon into the rivers and like heal the lands that they were raised on. And so it was really just a long process of trying to fit the narrative of the book into a movie, and something that could work as a movie, but not lose what was special and kind of strange about the book in the process.
Joel, I'm curious how you found your way into Robert. He's a man of few words, so much is on your face. So how did you find your way into the character?
I have been guilty of talking way too much in my life, and I think the older I get, I try to talk less.
But feel free to talk more while you're here.
Yeah, I'll talk while I'm here for sure. But quite often when I'm about to tell a story at a dinner table now, I'm thinking, do people really want to hear this story? And then I choose not to tell it. And it works well. But there's a certain different kind of focus that goes into not having much to say. There's less homework involved, for sure. But knowing that this sort of tracking all the events of what Robert goes through, and knowing that, in theory, the camera doesn't lie, and that if this stuff all did feel very personal to me, that if I just sort of did the right thing took a very honest approach, that the safety I had of the incredible director and an unbelievable cinematographer in Adolfo Veloso, that everything would work, everything would track. And in fact, one of the beautiful things about Robert as a character is he represents to me all of the men, in particularly the older generations of my life, and I'm sure it maybe is a sort of a weird, and I'm generalizing, but a bit of a hallmark of men in general, is their ability to button up, say less, push feelings down, and to be, the bright version of it is to call them stoic, but another version is you worry about how much sometimes people can push things down. And to allow Robert to be one of those guys, and an ordinary man, and to not forget that there's something beautiful in this, that it's the celebration of a normal guy. Because, we all go to the cinema, I think we like to go pretend that we're someone that could, fly around with a cape or save things, or that invented something amazing. But this is a chance for people in the audience to see something of their own normal life in the cinema. And I do believe that one power that cinema holds is a reflection of our own selves. And so just to trust the simplicity and the quietness as something powerful and loud in its own right.
Clint, what opportunities and challenges did that then present for you as a director as you worked through Joel's performance?
Joel's performance, trying to... the things that were exciting about it as a film were also the things that were scary about it. it's encapsulating this long life, and you don't want to make a film that starts to feel episodic and where it just starts to feel like, oh, and this happened. You want to make each moment feel very deep and resonant. Working with him was very easy because he can do so much with saying so little. And that was the thing to what Joel said for a moment ago. I wanted to represent this certain type of man that reminded me of my father or my grandfathers, who don't say much, but a deep well is running under there, and there's deep emotions running through there. And yet, you don't want it to become boring and so the narrator helped with that a bit in terms of being able to say things that Robert couldn't express for himself. I don't know, I kind of, with the movie, did all the things that you're told not to do, of like use a narrator, work with kids, work with animals, work a period piece, like all the things that smarter people wouldn't do. But those were the things that were exciting about it and that gave it life. So I don't know.
I want to give a shout out to some of the cast members that aren't here tonight. Joel, talk about your chemistry with Felicity. How did you work with her, and how did you build that relationship?
Man, I had the gift of working with all of these guys and girls in the film. Felicity and I had almost worked together in the past. I've known her for a while, and we've sort of danced around the idea of working together. And this, I sort of feel like in the same way that I'm glad I didn't get the rights to the book all those years ago, because I got to play Robert. In the same way, I feel like it was good that the time that Felicity and I got to work together was to be married together in this film. I think she's extraordinary, and brought, even in the development phase of the film, just this real detail that I think informed the fabric of a marriage or a relationship, that it wasn't just there to represent, romance, and now she's gone, that there was conflict, there was the idea of relationships becoming a bunch of shared duties, and the domesticity of that, so that there's dimension to that relationship other than some false sense of an idea of romance. And Felicity is very sort of intelligent in that regard, as well as being a very instinctually clever actor.
Speaking of great actors, let's talk about Bill Macy.
Oh my gosh, I could talk about Bill Macy all night. Yeah. Such a lovely, somebody I didn't know that I would get the chance to work with so early on. And he came in, and he's so much about the work, and there's no pretension around what he does. And he took a character. Arn Peoples in the book is already a larger-than-life character. And then in the script, Greg and I just expanded on that and made him a larger-than-life character. And that's something that, like, some actors could fall under the weight of that character, and let it, like, overpower them or maybe become a caricature or something. And he brings so much depth to it. And also just put me completely at ease, and was like very humble about the work in a way that made it very easy and a joy to work with him.
Yeah, and he wrote the song that
That's right,
arranged the song that he plays.
He did.
And he would entertain everyone on the set playing ukulele, and you got this sense, I really love, and I know there's a lot of students here that we met today and other students here, and hello to you guys. I often look at actors as they get older, and I'm somewhere hopefully in the middle if I last a bit longer. Where does your optimism give way at times to cynicism? There are actors that turn up on set and you're like, where's your joy gone? Where's it gone? Like, this is a privilege, And Bill's one of those guys who's been around for, I don't know how long, but a long time, because I was inspired by him when I was a student in Fargo, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And he had the spirit of kind of somebody on their first job. He didn't want to go back to any trailer. I don't think we had trailers. I've got to talk to you about it.
Don't tell the unions.
He would just sit on set and chat with the crew and tell stories and play his ukulele and harmonica and entertain people, and was thrilled to be there.
And it was like that we had John Deal, who I grew up watching in Michael Mann films and Stargate, and like Carrie Condon, who like Joel knew and was friends with from way back in the day. They worked together when they were young, and now she's kind of ascended into this other place, and yet came on as if she was any other actor, you know.
And she popped over from the set of a little movie called F1 because she just loved the script so much that she says, and if she were here, I'm sure she'd say it in a much cooler sounding accent than mine, that she just wanted to be a part of this movie. You know, it was like ventured over, popped over, and thankfully was allowed to do that on a bigger film to come and see us.
How did you, given this great ensemble, keep the mood light on set, given the gravity or the mood, the somberness of what you were filming? What was the mood on set like?
Ooh, it was tough, huh?
I think there's kind of a graph of opposites that exists, weirdly. I haven't been on that many comedies, probably because I'm really not that funny. But it feels like the mood on sets I've been on that are meant to be funny movies can often be very grim. Like maybe everyone's nervous that they're worried that is this thing going to be funny in the long run, but it's more that when there's a movie that deals with something heavy, there's a reverence to it. But I think it's also important to kind of have to kind of let the steam out in every now and then to relieve the, you know, to not put, you know, grey on grey and a hat on a hat. Is like if what you're dealing with between action and cut is heavy, to give the reverence to it, and actors can take their time, but to also allow there to be joy as a counterpoint to the heavier stuff.
Yeah, I felt like, and I feel like with the movie, you know, as a director, you're just trying to keep the set as calm as possible so that everybody can just kind of relax into whatever they've got. Even if you've only got 2 hours left and you need 3 hours to shoot the scene, you're just trying to keep it as chill as possible so people can relax into whatever they're doing. But I do recall, like, talking to a lot of the crew about this, and certainly my feeling about it was just whenever you've dealt with like losing somebody close to you or deep grief, once you come out on the other side of that, you're just so thankful for anything you have. And to have a morning with your kids, or to go out to dinner with your spouse, or just grab a beer with a friend, whatever it is, you're just very grateful for that. And there's an appreciation of life. And I remember watching Joel and Felicity have their marriage as Robert and Gladys, and I just remember thinking, like, just very excited to like get back home to my family and want to be a better husband and father, and so I think there was that kind of flowing through of just a gratitude for being alive, especially seeing this poor guy's story.
Heading into this, was there one scene that you were concerned about, or thing that was going to be a challenge for you, and are you proud of how it came out?
You know, I actually think the older I get, it's a trap for actors to look at a script and go, okay, these are the 3 scenes that are very important. For a start, you put too much pressure on yourself about that, and it means that maybe you diminish the importance of every other moment. I think in a way, my sense of how I feel about my kids has a lot to do with what I was able to give Clint. And if anything, usually when I look at anything about the expression of grief, I'm like, yeah, it was always like one of those scenes where, oh God, when are we shooting that scene? And, you know, how's that going to go? And if anything, I think in a way, I was like, I'm going to remind myself, because when I think about stuff around my kid's birth and stuff, I get very emotional about it. And it was important for me to remind myself that Robert's the kind of guy who does express his grief at the right moment, but the first thing he says afterwards is, I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me. Is, again, these men that just go, dare not show too much feeling. So I was sort of worried about not going too far with certain things and allowing Robert to have this weird emotional octave range. And the stuff about working with kids and chickens, which should be a danger and obviously like you be careful, that actually became joyous because of the way we just decided not to try and stick to a script, but just harness the right idea that was needed by just playing with the kids and running around after chickens, and it became really, really fun. And that's thanks to Clint's openness and his amazing sort of duo relationship with his cinematographer, Adolfo. Their ability to kind of be almost like old friends or siblings that have worked together for years. And they have, but the way they work together is very unique.
Clint, what about for you? Is there a scene you're proudest of?
I'm trying to think of one in particular that I'm like most proud of, and I don't know what it is. I think the ending. I'm looking for it right now, but no, there is one that like became very resonant, and Joel just alluded to it, where Grenier's saying goodbye for like what ends up becoming the last time to his family. He just thinks he's saying goodbye to go off to the woods again to cut trees, and he's saying goodbye. And it was written as this really poignant scene with the 2-year-old where he says goodbye and she knows what's happening and says bye, and then it's a really sweet moment between a parent and a child where they're saying, very like heart-wrenching. What ended up happening was the 2-year-old on the day didn't give a shit about anything. And like, did not want to be, like, just wanted to play with the little, like, with the broom or whatever. And we were trying to be like, okay, well, let's move the camera over here and we can just get a quick snippet of her saying goodbye and then it'll be okay. And Joel and I and Felicity, we all have kids around the same age. And we looked at each other and we're like, this is how it is, isn't it? Like, you're having this moment, this incredibly deep moment and really sad. And the kid's just like, where's my Spider-Man? What are you doing? And so we went with it, and we're like, let's let that be the scene. And it really, and then he tried to do a trick with a flower and coming out of his hand, and it didn't work, and the kid was like, stop, and like walked away. And but then we tried it again, and she really loved it and like really got into it. So anyway, that became like a even more poignant scene and a moment between Robert and Gladys when we needed it, which I didn't know until watching it and then seeing it in the edit. And I was like, oh, we do need this before Gladys moves out of the film, only to come back as a spirit, but whatever. And then it's something that like, as an Easter egg, if you ever watch it again, when he tries to do the flower thing, when he's saying goodbye, the kid's not interested at all. But then when he's in the plane and he's remembering it, we use the take where he does do the flower thing and she loves it, as if like his memory is remembering something much sweeter than what happened.
It just broke me. All right, thank you. All right, unfortunately, I have to let you go. I'm going to leave you with one last question. We've got a room full of students here. What advice would you offer them as they go off into their careers?
Guys. We had a good chat today at the masterclass. My advice to them at the time, and it was something I heard recently, which I think was so interesting, just to follow your own interest with full conviction. And in the world of storytelling is to sort of turn you back on the idea of pleasing an audience. I recently watched this thing where a guy was talking about a conductor, in order to kind of create this great music, has to turn their back on an audience, and as a sort of a metaphor for not trying to overthink what the world needs from you, because what the world needs from you is you to be you. I often thought as an actor I wasn't enough, and I had to like do all this extra things and adorn myself and add garnish to who I was. Really, you are the thing that's fascinating, and to remember that, and that your ideas in a similar way have value as a storyteller. And if you follow what you love, chances are there's a whole bunch of other people in the world that will love it too. So trust yourself is my thing.
That's good. Stick with your friends. You're going to get much farther together than you will without them. And make a lot of shit. Like, you got to make your bad stuff before you can make good stuff. So just make a lot and fear not. Work with excitement, not fear. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for the beautiful film. Thank you to both of you.